Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. Who was it then? Friday night. Mary, a 24-year-old girl, tired from job, was going to her childhood bestie, Julia. Julia and I studied in the same class, murmured Mary, sitting in Metropolitan. God, I can't believe this is happening. I am going to meet my best friend after 9 years. I am full of tears, said Mary, with eyes full of tears in her eyes. Actually, these tears were symbolizing her happiness and grief at the same time. She was remembering the moments spent with her Julia. Hey, miss, can we talk, if you don't mind? Questioned Mary from a young lady in front of her. The young lady was surprised that a girl wanted to share her feelings in an excitement. She could not stop herself from knowing the reason behind her excitement. Yeah, of course, replied the young lady. Myself, Mary. I am 24 and work for Walmart. Just got a weekend free for myself. I am just going to meet my childhood bestie named Julia. I still remember the days we bunked up classes together, the way we jumped in the playground, enjoyed the lunch together, stole food of other classmates, and ruined the notebooks to be checked by teachers. Ha. Mary spoke out all of this in breathless. But wait, she started crying while laughing. What was it? Wondered the young lady. She asked the reason that why she became suddenly sad. Mary replied, she was always in a gloomy mood in the morning. Her dad used to beat her mom a lot. She was from Islam. She used to tell me that her dad did not allow her mom to stand, even by the window of balcony. Slapped her mom without telling any reason. Always in a hurry of money for drinking alcohol. One day, her mom refused to give money for it. As a result, her dad broke a leg of her mom. She became very upset on that day. I advised many times to her that she should encourage her mom for divorce. But she said that mom will never agree upon it. On the day she told me about her mom's broken leg, I did not know that it would be the last day to see her in the school. After that, she never came. Just this is the story of ours. Ah, that was such a sad ending, wondered the young lady. So now you are finally going to meet up your bestie, right? Asked the young lady. Yes, replied Mary. The young lady asked her that From where did Mary got her friend's address? Mary told that she went to her friend's old address, and the neighbors told that the family has shifted to Newtown B. Just 2 kms away, and my destination will be right there. I am coming, Julia, spoke Mary. The young lady asked her many other questions, like why did Mary wait for so many years? Mary told that she became busy in her busy and boring life. Also, she answered her many other questions. Now, it was the time when Station was finally going to be there. The young lady could not stop herself from getting off with Mary. She actually wanted to know about many other things, and also wanted to know that how does her friend and family look now. She decided to go with Mary to Julia's home. When they both finally arrived at their destination, Mary knocked the door. A man aged about 70 to 72 opened the door. Mary ran to the house and started shouting, "Julia! Oh my Julu! Julie, where are you? I have arrived. Now don't play hide and seek." The old man spoke. "What rubbish! What the hell is it?" Julia was my wife. She died 40 years ago in a car accident with her mom. Mary replied, "I am not joking. I know her since childhood. She could not be dead, and she was young, not that much aged. We played just 9 years ago. She told me everything happened to her mom." Mary told all the information and story about Julia to that old man. The old man shocked and cried with tears that the story was real. He went to his old suitcase and got a very old album of Julia's birth to marriage pictures. He showed it to both the ladies. They got extremely shocked. The old man said, "One day she was drunk from a party. She was driving to get back to home with her mom, and I was waiting for her at the dinner with my brother and his wife. The car just crashed the huge truck, and after that, she died. Her mom was in coma. But Julia was not anymore. She left all of us with that heartbreaking feeling." Julia's story is exactly matching to the story of her mom's recent life. I don't know. Where did you got this information? From the kids? It's been 40 years. She is dead, but I always try to feel her presence. But she never came in my dream, not even a single time. I don't know how to meet her. I just want to get that soon. I hope this is possible as soon as possible. I'm just waiting for my death each day. Actually, yeah, it is true that her childhood was really very bad. Her dad used to be her mom. Without any reason, didn't allow her to move outside with freedom. Once he broke her leg as well. And after that, her mom became handicapped. Julie met me, and we were married. We were actually good friends in college. After we got married, her dad was dead. Her mom shifted to us. They both were actually happy, but she never could forgive her. That because her dad had ruined her mom and her childhood. The flood got out of their feet. That how could this happen? Mary was shocked that the story was true, and Julie's face was the same. But how could this be like that? She was an old lady, already dead, and wondered that what about the girl she played with all the time? All of the three started crying, and the young lady was very frightened. She tremblingly said, Who was it then? In the alley, in the alley. You never know when or exactly where I, the destroyer, will strike. I respect no one, people, animals, houses, or possessions. Hear me roar as I approach. Dark clouds and sky announce my coming. Witness my violence. Trees fall, glass shatters, puny man-made cars flip over, roofs are ripped off, light poles are bent. There is no stopping me. A storm is coming, Mitzi. I can feel it in my old bones, Gladys Moore said to her cat that morning. Better turn on the news to see if the weather people know anything. Gladys had lived in Grand Island, Nebraska all her life. No stranger to storms, she knew what to do and had ridden out several during her lifetime with only major yard cleanup. She wasn't that worried. She had a cellar. But she hadn't met an F5 yet. Mitzi vigorously licked her ears. Inside the canal, pressure was building. Far away in the distance, her sensitive hearing picked up a rumble of thunder. She raced around the kitchen, her fur standing on end and her tail puffed out. If her person knew what was good for her, she would slide underneath the bed soon. Well, that is, if she would fit. Rusty Booman heard the news. Same county, same general vicinity. A twister is headed our way. Rusty yelled at his brother, Charlie. Clothes and shoes were jammed on. A camera was slung around Rusty's neck. The back screen door slammed. Charlie gunned the Chevy farm truck as dust and gravel flew up behind them on the road. Rusty switched the radio on and listened to the newscaster. Turn toward Alda, he said to Charlie. Just then, his phone began flashing. This is the emergency warning system. Prepare for tornado near Alda and Grand Island. Charlie peered up through the truck window at the sky, where greenish-gray clouds amassed. A stiff wind whistled through gaps in the insulation around the truck's doors. Suddenly, the gale held its breath. The eerie silence momentarily chilled the simmering excitement of the young men. Charlie pulled to the road's shoulder. This is it, Russ. Get the camera ready. Our names will be all over TV when we get a close-up picture of the funnel coming down. They will say something like, "Young storm chasers capture tornado touchdown," and we'll be famous. They jumped out of the truck, and Rusty adjusted his camera's f-stops. Later, What was actually said was, "Young storm chasers killed near Alda. Their pickup truck lay in the ditch next to the road. Who knows what happened to the camera and the pictures? They were never found." "Foolish young men," says the destroyer. "But there is no law that says that people can't be idiots. They got a warning. Even looking at the signs in the sky should have told them I was imminent. No remorse on my part." As soon as Gladys saw the darkening expanse above her house, she put on her sturdy shoes and hung a whistle on a chain around her neck. She called her neighbor, Torrance Fielding. "You headed for shelter?" she asked. "Need anything?" "Yep, going down to keep the spiders in the basement company. Got everything I need. You?" "I'm fine. Just got to sit it out." Her tornado safety list was checked. Food, warm clothing and blankets, a flashlight, first aid kit, her meds, and water. She put Mitzi in her carrier with a soft cloth on the bottom. After several trips downstairs with supplies and her beloved cat, she closed the basement door behind her. A transistor radio would give her news. She put on her bicycle helmet, lest something hit her in the head, well away from the small windows. Gladys planted herself in a chair with Mitzi on her lap. Mitzi hated being confined and restless. She squirmed and meowed. Outside, the wind rose and shrieked and howled like a possessed animal while they waited and waited. Fear shivered down Gladys's spine. Then a silent lull, somehow more frightening, like the storm was gathering strength for its next onslaught. The house began to shake. Hail rattled down outside like bullets. She covered her head and Mitzi with a blanket. Slam, bang. They could hear wood splintering, objects falling and crashing to the floor above them. Paint cans plunged from the basement shelves, and some ruptured, spattering the cement with color. A suffocating pressure bore down on Gladys's chest. Rising dust made her cough. Her heart pounded, and her breath came in gasps. Panicked, she yanked the covering off herself. Bright flashes of light could be seen through the shattered window panes as the tornado passed over them. Debris from outside whooshed in through the broken windows. Mitzi attempted to claw her way out of her prison, but Gladys held her fast. Had hours passed? Again, an ominous hush after the storm had passed over them. But Gladys sat still for minutes, squeezing the carrier against her shaking body. Mitzi let loose a yowl. "We're safe, sweetie." "We made it." Slowly, Gladys stood. Her shoes crunched over broken glass, blown clear across the floor. Avoiding the paint puddles, she grasped the handrail with one hand and climbed the stairs to the door leading back into her house. It would not open. She jiggled the handle. Nothing. She set Mitzi down on the stairs and pushed her weight against it. wouldn't budge. No way could she crawl out those dinky basement windows. Anyway, she'd be cut to pieces. Wasn't there a hammer down here somewhere? Yep, it had fallen from its perch on the pegboard. My strength isn't what it used to be. These doors were made solid. Not such a great thing right now. She kept hammering without much result. Sweat rolled down her face. She should be glad she'd survived. But now being trapped was scary too. Mitzi wasn't helping. Her plaintive cries grated in Gladys's ears and made her more on edge. She set her weapon down and rubbed her forehead. To her surprise, her fingers came away bloody. When had she got injured? Now it hurt. But when she looked down, her eyes rested on her whistle. She blew with all her might, while Mitzi flattened her ears. Hours later, when Torrance was able to exit his own house, which had been flattened by the big oak in his yard, he hurried to Gladys and heard her now faint whistle. He shook his head in wonder. One wall with a door stood. Otherwise, her house was a pile of rubble. "I hear you, Gladys," he shouted. "I'm going to get you out." The destroyer laughed as he barreled down the countryside, wreaking devastation as he went. Even the people like Gladys, who planned ahead, aren't completely safe from me. I demolished her house. She's homeless now. But like others, she might rebuild. Spawned by a thunderstorm, I'll gather strength again soon and plunder this same area. Crazy people. There's a reason why they call it Tornado Alley. Paranoid delusions. The wind buffeted him wildly, and the rain hammered down relentlessly. He was walking near the local creek, which was connected to the suburb's storm water drains. But this particular area was just rocks, shrubs, trees, and water. Hastily, he made his way down to the muddy stream, which, at this time, was pitch black, and stepped into the water. This would be a sort of baptism. He descended into the water and dunked himself in it. It was too shallow to cover his entire body, so he splashed some water onto his head. Now he was ready for whatever this night held in store for him. As he ascended the side of the creek, he saw before him the well-trimmed grass soccer field, lit by down lights on the large steel poles surrounding it, and began to stagger in its direction. Soon, he was standing in the middle of the field, wet from the downpour. He felt alone. Not physically alone. There were cars going up and down the road next to the field. But as far as he knew, nobody knew he was out here. But strangely, he saw someone approaching in the light. It was a middle-aged man. Thunder boomed across the field. "What are you doing out here?" "Best to be truthful. I'm waiting for the world to end." "Have you come to join me?" Lightning lit up the sky. "Yes, I'm out here for the same reason. They both turned and looked at the houses, whose steel back fences met the side of the field. Do you think we're the only ones who know? The rain belted down on them both. I think so. The thunder from the lightning rumbled heavy and hard as more great arcs lit up the sky, and the rain became heavier. The man looked at him through the gelatinous downpour. "How did you get here?" he replied in a frantic rush. "I've been walking through this night down many different paths. I honestly couldn't tell you how I got here. I just kept on walking. Eventually, I hit the creek over there, and then I came to this field. The wind battered them, causing the rain to hit them in an angular fashion, directly on their face." The man came up to him, soaking wet, and put a hand on his shoulder. "Tell me your name. We need to pass the time somehow." The rain began to subside, and the wind became calmer. He responded, "My name's Jack. Who are you anyway?" The man looked at the ground, his hand still on his shoulder. "I'm David. Tell me everything you know about why you're here. Tell me everything you know about the world ending." He sat down, and the man sat with him. "I left my car when the radio started sounding funny. Just got out and left it where it was. It wasn't just the radio. I felt like the car was going to lock me in any second. I walked and walked, and when I got to some shops, I heard people laughing at me, but I just ignored them and opened the Bible. I was sitting on a concrete barrier, and the pages just started to turn, slowly at first, but then faster and faster, till it stopped at the book of Revelation. Ah, the book of Revelation, the prophecy of the end times. But don't you think that maybe it was just the wind? Jack's face tightened, and his teeth gritted. "It was a sign. I know a sign when I see one." A loud thunder crack shook the earth. He began to pace back and forth, and then turned to face David, his voice trembling despite his efforts, words spilling out too fast, fingers twitching against the damp grass. "The end of the world is when God returns his Son, Jesus, back to the world to judge everyone. Everything great we have built, all the technology we have created, it won't make any difference. Everything will be destroyed to be remade again. All the wicked will be sent to hell, while those who believe will be given new bodies and will live forever with God, Jesus, in their midst." "I see," said David. "I'm not going to debate your beliefs with you. I respect your choice. But tell me, what made you think it's happening right now?" He began to pace again. "It started as a feeling. I was feeling so amped up. And then I saw the pages turn on my Bible. And then this crazy storm started happening. And I've had this horrible feeling, like 1,000 people are watching me at once. If I close my eyes, I can almost see them looking at me. And then, when I was in my car, I heard people singing my name. I don't know why they were doing that. Maybe they want me to think I'm special. So I'll think I am the Messiah, but I'd be a false Messiah, so I can't let them control me, David replied softly. I can see there is a lot going on for you. Let's break this down. So, the storm made you feel more alert, more vigilant. The way you said it before, it was as if your feelings created the storm. But don't you think the storm might have been what, in your words, amped you up, and not the other way around? The wind became gentle. He continued, his voice calm and reassuring, and the feeling of being watched. This could be paranoia. Many people who become paranoid feel they are being watched. And when you heard people singing your name, are you sure that's what you heard? Do you think maybe you misheard? Or perhaps you're hallucinating? In any case, you left your car running in the middle of the road. I hope it hasn't been stolen. His shoulders slumped. The clouds were clearing, and a few stars were visible through the soccer field lights. Everything you're saying could be true, but if I can't trust my own feelings, how can I know anything? I'm a Christian. I believe God can talk to me. Is God deceiving me? Silence descended upon them, with only a faint breeze gusting back and forth. David smiled. Listen, I respect your beliefs, and I'm sure that there is something in those beliefs that allows for God to communicate with you in certain ways. But let me tell you something. He opened his wallet and pulled out a card. I am not actually here for the end of the world. I'm here to find you. I'm a psychologist in the public mental health care system. Your parents have reported you missing. And I'm here because your phone allowed us to track you. That might sound like a breach of privacy, but believe me, it's in your own interest. Right now, I believe you are mentally unwell, and I want to help you. Look at the both of us out here, soaked from head to toe. I need you to follow me over to my car so we can take you somewhere where we have medicine that can help calm you down. It's going to be hard at first. The medication isn't perfect, but if you keep taking it, you will get used to the side effects. And then things like this won't happen again. Hopefully. He looked down, wondering at everything he had just heard. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know you're going to take me somewhere and torture me? You know the world is filled with people who hate Christians. How do I know you're not a Satanist and part of a plan to make me lose my faith? Tears began to fall from his eyes. I believe that God can get me through anything. But honestly, I don't know if I could hold up under torture. The wind began to pick up again. David's face took on a look of empathy. All I can say is that I promise I'm here to help you. If God is going to communicate with you, it will help if you're thinking straight. And that's what we're going to try to do. Help you to be able to think without succumbing to delusions and paranoia. I've seen many cases like yours, and I really do feel for the people we treat. Will you come with me? He felt a sense of resignation. All right, I'll come with you. Though the ground was soaked, he could feel the firmness of the earth beneath his feet. The two of them walked off the field. The air was now completely still, and crickets could be heard chirping in the night air. A willow of weeps. Her bones were brittle, but not from age. These days, it was a workout in itself to wipe the counters clean, and had even become hard to pick up the unused dishes she'd find on the table at the end of the day. The ceramic was too heavy for her frail hands. She set a place at the table for each of her children, complete with her finest china and silverware in the proper way. But, she supposed, her children had better things to do than come eat with their poor mother. She didn't mind, seeing as she only wanted them to be happy. And so the table was continuously set and continuously taken apart, but never a drop of food to clean up, as the cycle repeated itself over and over again. Every day she made the bed in the guest room, which no one ever used, and the beds in her daughter and son's room. She never made her own, because she was afraid of encouraging bed bugs in the tightly packed sheets. The days went by in a blur, and how could they not when she was biding her time, cleaning off the same shelves, bedside tables, and book covers she did the day before? For a house with very little movement, there sure seemed to be a lot that needed to be done. So there she was, perched on a wooden stool at the granite countertop, scraping at some invisible speck of dirt. She hummed to herself, softly rocking back and forth. It was hard to tell when she had last eaten, but her shaky hands shed some light on the matter. She grasped the silver knife in her hand and then let it drop, a resounding clink following suit. "Oh, Charlie boy, how I love you," she cooed. "Oh, Lisa darling, how I adore you." She went on and on, singing them praises with a tired smile on her face. She hummed a tune in the still air. "Pick me a pear from that tree outside. Hand me a willow of weeps. Kiss all my tears away, darling, while I send you to somber sleep." Only when she heard no reply did she start up again. "Take me to dance, and we'll sing along the lonesome tune of the night. Lend me your ear, and I'll make a song to sing you. Goodbye, goodbye." The fire beckoned, so she willed her legs up off the stool, grounding her feet on the cool tiles of the kitchen floor. She made her way to the little carpet beside the hearth, humming all the while. The rug beneath her was cold and stiff, a mass of black and white fibers, all woven together. Once the fire was stoked, she huddled her knees to her chest and resumed that gentle rocking back and forth. She picked up a pretty little jar by her side, lazily examining the carvings engraved on the stone. Swirls and swooshes of wind alongside a small wilting chrysanthemum. delicately designed. She traced the carvings with her thin, brittle finger. Then she opened the jar. She reached 2 fingers into the opening and took a small pinch of the contents. With a delicate flick, she sent the ashes into the heat. She watched, mesmerized, as the fire grew and died, grew and died. With each pinch of ashes, she found herself smiling, humming that tune that kept on a loop in her mind. "Oh, Charlie boy, how I love you," she cooed once more, sending some ashes into the fire. "Oh, Lisa, darling, how I adore you." Then she took the jar, perched dangerously close to the flames, and sent the rest of the ashes down into the coal. The fire roared in gratitude and grew bigger still, and all the while her heart beat with a sad, sad rhythm as she kept that absent smile on her lips. Then, to her horror, she heard footsteps, loud, panicked footsteps, making their way down the stairs in the hallway. So close they were. She was sent into such a state of panic that she dropped the jar onto the floor, its ceramic shell breaking upon contact into hundreds of tiny shards. She let out a scream. "Oh, Charlie boy, how I love you," she sobbed, huddling against herself, rocking furiously. "Oh, Lisa, darling, how I adore you." She sobbed and wailed until she thought she couldn't anymore. And even then, it continued, an endless flow of tears. She let out another scream as she felt 2 sturdy hands on her shoulders. "Oh, Charlie boy, is that you?" she wailed, rocking harder. "Mrs. Jamie, it's time for your medicine, darling." Another shriek, the words sending her into an episode. "Oh, Lisa, darling. Oh, Lisa, darling. Where are you, Lisa, darling?" She began slamming her hands into her knees and rocking so hard forward that she sent her whole frail body toppling onto the ground. "Mrs. Jamie, it's me, Randy. I'm your nurse. I'm here now. Everything is okay now," she wailed some more. Because, of course, everything wasn't okay. "Charlie boy, Lisa darling, help me!" And then she surrendered to Randy's strong grasp, wailing still, as he took her upstairs to her bedroom. She was so worked up that she could barely see, her eyes welling with every thought of that fire, those ashes. She kicked and flailed as she was firmly placed into bed, tucked in tight for all the bed bugs to see. "Mrs. Jamie, it's okay," Randy said softly, stroking her hair as he fed her various pills and a glass of water. "I'm here now. You're safe. I will keep you safe." She looked up at him with big, innocent eyes. Just like that, she had already forgotten the panic she was in moments ago. She resumed the gentle rocking as her frail hands clutched the sheets. "Charlie," she murmured. "Lisa, they're safe too, now." They're not in pain anymore. Hush now, dear. It's about time you went down for a nap, huh? The veil bloom. Elwyn absorbed the gentle coastal wind as it caressed her face from where she sat within the moors that lined her village. Stray wisps from her plaited, brown gold-streaked hair broke free as it was picked up by drafts. Distant sounds of the nearby market where she worked were a pressing reminder that she had stolen extra minutes to escape work duties. The red knitted hat protecting her ears played tug of war with the increasing gusts that rippled through the purple heather as she ran back towards the busy village, only looking down to ensure she did not step on any wildlife going about their day. Without warning, a darkness encroached the sky, and a slow, thick mist curled around the young woman's path. Elwyn became a static pillar of fear, watching the tendrils of mist reaching out and parting the heather, beckoning her to change her path, unable to sense beyond the darkness that strangled out the rest of the world. Elwyn tensely focused her vision on what the dark magic revealed. Something was glowing intensely. Elwyn tenderly progressed her nimble feet, feelings of fear and interest arguing with one another. She came upon a ruby-red thorned bush, isolating an intense, majestic amethyst glow beneath it. A faint whisper trickled into Elwyn's ears. The bramble peeled itself, exposing the velvet, petaled, regal-like flower bud glistening with crystal dewdrops. "The tide obeys the moon," a female voice sang, prompting the rose to bloom fully before Elwyn's widened eyes. "But not all who guide you wish you to sail true." Before she could repeat the phrase in her head, the darkness sank away into the moors, leaving no trace of its sudden presence. The purple rose remained in Elwyn's hand for only a second before she carefully stuffed it into her pocket as voices came booming from the village, indicating that she had indeed been away too long. Looking and finding no traces of the encounter, she fled for the market. As Elwyn approached her father's stall, she could hear murmurations from the fellow tradesmen. Shouting orders came from customers who bartered prices on fabrics and fresh fish. "Did you see the weather change?" Elwyn hastily asked as she removed her hat and jacket, messily placing them onto the upturned veg crates in front of the stall. "Never mind the damn weather. Get peeling these damn carrots for supper." He tossed a knife to Elwyn and kicked an empty bucket next towards her feet. He was only strict from the grief of losing his love and their newborn daughter in childbirth in recent years. Frustrated, Elwyn perched herself on a stool and began carving at a carrot stump. Even if she told her father, he wouldn't believe her. The rugged orange skin tumbled into the bucket between her feet as her eyes fixed with intrigue on the powerful purple rose that seemed to glisten from the adjacent pocket. "It's a veil bloom, if you were wondering," came a voice full of wisdom and assurance from the front of the tent. Elwyn glanced up to see a tall, thin, yet toned male figure bent over, perusing at the cabbages. His eyes pined towards the purple veil bloom, peeping out of the brown jacket pocket. The flower's quiet, luxurious vibrance seemed out of place and would surely be noticed by a knowing collector's eye. Elwyn glanced quickly towards her father, hoping she would not be heard. But he remained engrossed in organizing the stock in the back of the tent. "What do you know of them?" Elwyn stopped peeling and fixed a softened stare at the mail. Her wide eyes probably revealed too much as she hoped for answers. Had she been cursed? She submissively looked toward the flower, phantom feeling its hard thorns against her fingers. "Only what the legend states," Vasca answered. "It's like finding a four-leaf clover. Just lucky." He picked up a cabbage and placed it under his arm. "My name is Vask. My family own a stall on the outskirts of the village. In my spare time, I am not ashamed to say that I am an anthophile." Vasca took out a small pocket-sized leather sketchbook. He opened it to reveal small flowers pressed neatly between the pages, each one secured with a small bit of clear tape. Elwyn tentatively leered over to see sprigs of lavender and small bouquets of daisies married together. Between parchment, she returned her eyes to Vasca. His emerald eyes cut sharp against the copper curls that framed his softened jawline. "I am only interested in where you found it, to satisfy the curiosity of a collector." His eyes flashed to meet hers. "I found it in the moors," was all Elwyn offered, indicating that if Vasca was to hold the cabbage in the crook of his arm any longer, he was to pay for it. Embarrassed, he hastily put his hand in his pocket to search for payment. Bringing out 2 silver coins, he placed them on the wooden trade table that bore the produce. "Thank you," Vask smiled as he grabbed 2 more cabbages. "Keep the change, and if you are into books, come by the stall tomorrow." He kept Elwyn's stare as he retreated into the market crowd. "Oi!" shouted Elwyn's father. "Are we getting supper tonight, or do I have to finally skin the cat?" Her father was stood holding up the rear tent flap, peering in with disappointment. Startled, Elwyn kicked the bucket back between her well-worn leather boots and continued to scalp the skin from the carrot, stealing glances at the veil bloom in wonder of its true intentions. The next day, Elwyn laid out the vegetables onto the wooden trade table as her father stacked the emptied crates from behind the tent. After a night of being plagued by the whispers and visions of dark forests, she desired to know more about the veil bloom. The blood-red thorns pressed into the inner lining of her coat pocket, the tips seeping through to the cotton of her work dress, nipping at her as she moved. Glancing down, she could see the rich velvet petals, longingly looking back up at her from within, deep in her coat pocket. She rubbed her thumb over the veil bloom's soft middle. The tightly gathered corolla gently ticked the pad of her thumb. "I'm just going to get a new recipe book," Elwyn called to her father. Before he could battle her decision, she broke out into a purposeful stride. Her jacket rippled against the cool air as her arms straightened through the sleeves. She pulled her collar to secure herself against the chill, weaving in and out of tradesmen setting up their stalls, unsure of the faces that surrounded her in a familiar satay of work. She kept her head low, turning on her heels and accepting defeat, trying to find Vaska. Elwyn began to walk back to the southern area of the coastal market. Smells of fresh fish and spices began to fill her nostrils, reminding her stomach of its emptiness. "I found it," called a familiar voice. Vaska appeared in her eye line as she paused to see him run back into his tent and return with a large, tatted book. "Veil Bloom." Vaska turned the book towards Elwyn as her hands held the edges to support its weight with him. "Located in lands of enchantment, it amplifies one's desires and strength, even with madness." Vaska laughed gently as he impersonated a person riddled with madness and unbalance. Elwyn rejected the book by letting go of the worn-down leather edging and taking a step back from Vaska. "It also says it sings lullabies, which probably explains the bit about going mad." Vaska coyly laughed. Elwyn's face turned to deep thought at the young man, voluntarily helping her. "I don't desire anything." She paused, wondering if giving him the whole story would favor her or not. "What does it say about lullabies?" Her voice almost a whisper. The emerald in Vaska's eyes began to swirl with intrigue as he gestured for them to go somewhere quieter to talk. The pair sat cross-legged underneath a large oak tree situated on the outskirts of the market. Elwyn's face buried in the book of hidden blooms, each page so thin almost translucent, gently flapped between her fingertips. It says in the legend that if the flower starts to glow, you become more powerful. Vaska added, as he looked deeply into the island of dense forest on the horizon, isolated by small ocean waters. The enchanted, banished lands leaked darkness. His soft curls caught the wind, his eyes in a thoughtful trance. Elwyn shuddered at the thought of the flower's magic ending up in the wrong hands. "I should get back," Elwyn decided as she stood up, ready to face the wrath from her father upon her return. Elwyn woke suddenly, in the dead of night. Sweat dripped from her brow, her long, brown, damp hair that clung to her neck. "Help us," came a faint whisper. Elwyn held her breath as she looked around for the voice's owner, the vile bloom, picking it up by its thick green stem. The ruby-red thorns pulsated as she brought it closer to her ear. "Help us, Elwyn." It eerily beckoned, suddenly, moving images as if they were her own memories, flooded her mind. She could see a vast forest that crawled with amethyst-colored smoke. A fawn emerged in the clearing, eyes wide with terror, trembling as it proceeded to lie down on the dark moss floor. Elwyn had feelings of blood rushing back to her limbs as she regained consciousness. Her mind lingered with a defiant message. The banished lands needed her help. Her head swiveled around to the oak tree beyond the market border, to see an elbow bent from behind it, as if someone was sat down with their back to it reading. Elwyn gingerly walked over to them, hoping the white cotton shirt belonged to Vaska, and not someone who would alert her father or challenge her in any way. Reassuringly, Vask sat with the heads of bluebells crowded on the bend of his knee as he pressed them into his sketchbook. He looked up to see a panic-stricken Elwyn. "What's the matter?" His face matched her concerned look. "The veil bloom showed me something," Elwyn bleated softly under her breath. "I don't know the meaning of the vision or the dream," Vasquez started, after hearing the story from Elwyn. He stared again at the island of trees isolated by small ocean waters, wondering if the legend is true of the banished lands. "If we go there, do you think we will die?" Elwyn asked with hope of a good answer. Vaska didn't respond. He continued his longing stare towards the banished lands. "I just know that this dream felt more real than any other I have had," Elwyn continued. "The fawn seemed terrified, not of me, but of something I don't think I could see. I think we should try to help it." Elwyn removed the veil bloom from her pocket. Its petals had begun to wilt at the edges, curling in as if it were ready to die. "What I have done?" Elwyn softly asked herself under her breath. Had she stayed in the market that day, she wouldn't be having nightmares caused by florals. "I don't think it's something that you have done," Vaska replied, as his eyes glinted with what seemed like excitement. "I think it's more about what you could do to help." Once they beached their stolen rowing boat amongst the cold brown sand on the shore of the banished lands. The atmosphere hung heavy as life drew to a whisper, and then to a flat silence. "What does your love of flowers tell you now?" Elwyn asked Vaska, with a tint of amusement at the moss-strangled rocks that decorated the forest floor. Not even the twigs beneath their feet made a noise as they progressed deeper into the darkness. "Nothing yet," Vaska gently replied, as they descended deeper, deeper into the towering forest. Elwyn tripped on a rock, twisting her ankle slightly. "Careful," Vask panted as he grasped a hold of her elbow, prompting a powerful vision into Elwyn's mind, causing her to spiral in between memories, not her own. A hushed murmur echoed in her ears as she saw sights of a large wolf with emerald eyes stalking and hunting on the outskirts of the forest. As if unable to enter beyond the first row of trees, many moons passed in the sky as it returned night after night. A clear voice embedded deep in Elwyn's veins. "The tide obeys the moon, but not all who guide you wish you to sail true. The vision of the wolf disappeared into smoke, shifting into flurries of flashbacks. The first time she met the veil bloom flower, the look in Vask's eyes, as he also saw it for the first time that day in the market. As if he pined for it, she remembered. The book thrust into her face that day in the market, as if Vaska knew she would come looking for answers. The veil bloom let out a breath, glowing intensely in agreement. Elwyn had not realized she was now holding it, squeezing it in her paper-thin hand, seething from an anger rooted deep within. He had led her there, purposefully, knowingly. "Help us," came the wispy echo. It repeated with each turn, louder than the last. More voices adding into the chorus of pleas from wildlife. Elwyn fell to the floor as the visions and voices ripped away from her, breathless and her mind aching. She looked up to see Vask's face of worry. "What did you see?" he hastily asked, his face tense with pressure. Everything," Elwyn tried to continue when a creature in the clearing approached. A fawn. An amethyst smoke seeped in from behind the fawn, encasing everything in its wake in a building chaos. Turning to face the fawn properly, Elwyn could see the thick smoke tendrils once again clearing a path. This time around the fawn, who was whimpering, but showing a quiet strength, trying to stand. Elwyn had seconds to think. She turned to Vask. His emerald eyes were gleaming with anticipation at the flower as he turned toward her. "It's working," came Vaska's voice, a rasp with a hint of excitement at the veil bloom glowing intensely. He snatched it from her fingers, contorting his body in obsession and glee. He threw his arms in the air. "I am the most powerful!" But only silence sounded over the whirring mists. Elwyn felt a burning in her veins. Her body acted automatically as she turned to face Vaska, her back to the trembling fawn in protection. The veil bloom turned to ash in Vaska's trembling hand, his face mad. Auburn curls bounced around with every frantic move he made, searching for the bloom. He turned to see Elwyn, her arm outstretched in retaliation towards him. A push at his shoulder from an invisible force turned his face from confused to pure rage at seeing the veil bloom reforming itself in the powerful young woman's pocket, siding with her instead. "Clever girl, but I don't need you," Vaska hissed. "Just the veil bloom now that your kind heart woke it from slumber." His teeth began to form into sharp fangs. His face shifted into a recognizable wolf with emerald eyes. He lunged for Elwyn, jaws agape in blind fury and jealousy. Elwyn darted to the side. A fire of purple light erupted through her veins, streaming out from her fingertips into the wolf's beastly body, knocking him backwards. He steadied himself, and leaped high into the air to plant another attack, aiming true to Elwyn and the glowing veil bloom. At once, she coaxed the power from the veil bloom, causing the ground to quake against the sheer force. Gripping against the weight of the power, she lifted and hurled a fatal blow towards the wolf, smashing his limp body against the strongest and tallest trees. Elwyn panted as she looked at the purple illuminations in her veins trickle out and into the fawn behind her. She looked up at the wolf, but only to see his body disintegrate into smoke and disappear into the sky. An escaped curse. Elwyn ran to the fawn, hoping to help it to live, to answer its plea. The soft curve of the fawn's head cupped Elwyn's hand, opening its eyes tenderly. The land around awoke in harmony. The fawn gathered to its feet, bowing proudly to Elwyn, as the gentle black nose touched the floor. A sweep of purple brushed through the land. A once cursed land started to return to life as animals crept out of deep burrows and birds took once again to the sky. The fawn transformed into a majestic stag, concluding the awakening of the misunderstood lands. His aura glowed in the same pearlescent magic that once flowed through Elwyn's veins. She looked down to see her bare arms, and back to the stag, who nodded at her before bouncing off into the thriving atmosphere. Smiling, Elwyn knew her calling now was back to her grieving father. She could never leave him on his own. A thorn dug into her side. The veil bloom remained in her pocket, clasped tightly in a sleeping bud. Its messages sang deep in Elwyn's head as she stroked its velvety casing. It was the flower's magic that gave her the power to connect and calm the land. But it was her kind heart that ultimately saved them all. Before the last light fades, the sky hung heavy with smoke, the distant cries of the oppressed swallowed by the towering buildings of a city once free. A mother and daughter weaved through the shadows, their breath shallow, their hands concealed beneath tattered gloves. Veil gripped Iris's tiny hand as they maneuvered through the ruins of their former home. Each step, a calculated whisper in the night. The Iron Thorns brand was the mark of submission or death, and they would take neither. The air carried the scent of decay, a putrid reminder of the regime's cruelty. People slithered through the alleyways, gaunt faces avoiding eye contact, knowing that even a glance could spell their doom. The regime's soldiers patrolled the streets like reapers clad in black, their glowing red eyes piercing through the darkness, hunting those who dared remain unmarked. The execution of Veil's husband, Iris's father, still burned in their minds. The smell of charred flesh haunted their nostrils. The crackling flames, the mocking laughter of the soldiers, the silence of the crowd. It all replayed in their nightmares. They had to keep moving, had to survive, had to evade the fate that had claimed him. Tonight was another night of scavenging. A half-crumbled restaurant stood at the corner of a ruined boulevard, its once vibrant walls now covered in soot and graffiti. Vale pulled Iris inside, keeping close to the walls. The scent of rotting food and stale air filled their lungs. The mother worked quickly, rifling through drawers, picking out anything edible, while Iris stood guard near the entrance. A sound. Boots against concrete. Vale stiffened, signaling for Iris to stay silent. Soldiers, their red eyes glowed from the entrance as they fanned into the restaurant, their movements calculated, methodical. They began inspecting hands, searching for those unmarked by the iron thorn. Vale pulled Iris back, creeping toward a darkened hallway. A misplaced step, a brush against cold metal fork clattered to the floor. The sharp clang cut through the silence like a gunshot. Heads turned, red eyes locked onto them. Vale wasted no time. She yanked Iris's wrist and ran, her heart hammering in her chest. They pushed through a door, locking it behind them. A window, their only escape. Go! Vale hoisted Iris up as the door behind them rattled. The girl scrambled through, dropping onto the cold alley below. The door splintered. Vale lunged through, just as the soldiers burst inside. Shouts erupted, radio static crackling to life. Lights flickered on across the street as people stirred. Gunfire roared. A searing pain tore through Vale's leg as she shoved the door of a rundown building open. She collapsed onto the floor, biting back a scream. Blood pooled beneath her as she dragged herself into the shadows, Iris clutching her arm, tears welling in her terrified eyes. Vale took her daughter's face in her hands. Listen to me. You have to hide. No, Mom. Please, Iris. Vale's voice cracked. Stay hidden, no matter what happens. With trembling hands, she guided Iris into a closet, barely illuminated by the moonlight streaming through a broken window. Iris clamped her hands over her mouth to stifle her sobs. The boots arrived. Heavy, unyielding. A soldier stepped into the room, scanning the darkness. Vale lay in wait. When the first soldier stepped through, she struck, sending him to the ground. But there were more. Too many. A rifle butt slammed into her face, and she tasted blood. Her vision blurred. The room spun. More boots. More fists. She barely registered her own teeth, breaking as she hit the ground. Through swollen eyes, Vale turned ever so slightly toward the closet, toward Iris. A soldier noticed. He stepped toward the door. The closet burst open. Iris flew forward, her father's pocket knife in her tiny hand. She plunged it into the soldier's thigh. A scream. A gunshot missed its target as the soldier reeled back. But then a massive hand swung, sending Iris crashing into the wall. "No! No!" Vale's voice was hoarse, raw with anguish. She tried to crawl forward to Iris, but a boot slammed down on her spine, pressing her into the filth-ridden floor. A soldier began inspecting their hands for the mark of the iron thorn. But there was no mark. A soldier crouched beside her, those glowing red eyes consuming her vision. "We have plans for you." Darkness swallowed her whole. Days passed in black silence, interrupted only by the sound of rats skittering across damp stone. The air was thick with rot. Vale and Iris were dragged from their cell, their chains clinking, their bodies weak. The execution grounds reeked of gasoline and old death. The earth beneath them was blackened, littered with ash. The crowd gathered, silent, afraid. Vale pulled Iris close, pressing a kiss on her forehead. "I love you, Iris. I love you too, Mom." Tears streaked down their faces, their fingers entwined. The soldiers poured gasoline over them, the cold liquid seeping into their clothes, filling their nostrils with its acrid scent. The crowd watched in silence, some with vacant stares, others with barely concealed horror. One soldier stepped forward, a Molotov in hand, his voice a cruel mockery. "I love you too." Laughter erupted behind him. The glass shattered. Chaos exploded. Flames roared. But not from the Molotov. It came from the sky, from behind the buildings. Rebels. Gunfire cracked through the air. The soldiers scattered, scrambling to defend against an unseen enemy. The crowd erupted, some running, some standing frozen in place. Vale, weak but driven by desperation, tore at the chains. A stray bullet shattered the lock. She ripped her bindings free, grabbed Iris, and ran. Through the chaos, they stumbled into an alley, their lungs burning, their limbs barely obeying their commands. The city screamed behind them, but for now, they were free. Vale collapsed against a wall, cradling Iris against her chest, her fingers running through the girl's tangled hair. The child trembled, clutching her mother's torn cloak. "We're okay," Vale whispered, her voice cracked and fragile. "We're okay." Iris buried her face into her mother's shoulder, sobs racking her tiny frame. "I thought we were going to die." Vale held her tighter, pressing a kiss against her head, rocking her gently. "Not today, my love. Not today." The night still loomed. The regime still reigned. But for this fleeting moment, they had each other. And that was enough. Tea for 3. Checking the day's schedule, Maud looked forward to meeting her first-time client, Silesia. Her daily prep included the wide variety of tea blends sufficient to the day's demands. Maud called her social events pours. Modeled after the traditional Japanese tea ceremony, she aimed deeper than mere tranquility. Her delicious, blended teas reoriented her clients' views of themselves and the world. She tailored each concoction individually by adding herbs and essential oils. Every ingredient was organic and non-toxic. Of course, it was all legal. Maud acquired her skill by studying under a Peruvian shaman for a decade. Her second scheduled client called himself Ted, not his real name. Maud hadn't met him, but she knew him well. A columnist at the local newspaper, he was her most strident critic. Maud intended to reorient Ted's views, good and hard. Ted and other critics claimed Maud ran a cult. She scoffed at such descriptions. They've obviously never attended my tea parties. Clients choose to return. They're not compelled. She maintained a low public profile. Finding self-promotion distasteful, Maud didn't advertise. She didn't need to. Word of mouth brought most of her clients seeking relief from a life out of balance. They generally left happy. Critics wondered why no one in City Hall cared to lift her veil of secrecy. Maud dismissed rumors, claiming she was a close confidant of politicians and society mavens. Maud admitted to modifying the tea ceremony into something unique. Her pours were for anyone seeking to rebalance. The pours logo was a modified yin-yang symbol, depicted as floating within the bowl of a bamboo spoon. She didn't tell fortunes, wasn't a guru, and didn't run a seance, nor was she a matchmaker, though some had found love after meeting through her. That was serendipity at play, not Maud. Maud also adamantly rejected the term therapist. She firmly rejected suggestions her pours were a form of group therapy. She abhorred insinuations that she practiced without a license. As the appointed time for this day's pour approached, Maud prepared a special tea for Ted. Not knowing Silesia's needs and temperament, she waited. Her standard blends would do until she knew more. Maud resisted temptation regarding Ted. Poison was an option to which she refused to stoop. But she had prepared something special for him. Maud was confident that when Ted left the pour, his attitude would be radically different from the one he brought. With a few minutes before the pour, Maud sat in silence, with her hands folded. The bell rang. Maud opened the door to Silesia, wearing a short, strapless sundress and a broad-brimmed straw hat. Silesia thrust out her hand. "Maud? Yes, welcome to my pour." Maud waved her in and saw Ted coming up the walk in a suit and tie. She introduced herself and led them to the dedicated pour room. Silesia talked rapidly. "It's such a beautiful day. Perfect for a little tea, don't you think?" Maud nodded. Ted lagged behind, taking note of the decor and the layout of the house. Silesia continued without pausing for breath. "But it's so beautiful. A shame to spend it cooped up inside. I love going down to the river walk and watching the ducks and the boats and the birds flying overhead. The trees make such lovely shade, and each fluttering leaf responds to every slight breeze. Is there any way we can reschedule? I hate to waste the day inside. Once in the room, Maud indicated where they should sit. Well, you're here now. We won't be all day, bright and shadowless. The poor room had no windows. No pictures adorned the walls, which had climbing vines painted on them. A ficus tree stood in one corner. A low table sat amidst plush pillows. A table beside Maud had a gas fire, teapots, space for preparation, and teacups. Silesia and Ted did a little dance, trying to decide who should sit where. Maud pointed and said, "No, Silesia there. Ted, please sit here." They sat. Silesia giggled like a little girl. Ted's face shifted between annoyance and boredom. Maud prepared the tea with bamboo utensils and served them each a cup. She said, "This first cup should relax you. Take a moment to enjoy. Sip carefully. It's hot." Silesia downed the cup in one gulp and screamed as she spit it out. She grabbed a napkin and wiped tea off herself and the table. "Wow, sorry, that was hot." Ted rolled his eyes. The first serving of tea was intended to break the ice. Maud never wanted clients to think of their poor experience as akin to riding in an elevator. They were past that. Whatever their stated purpose, Maud sensed subtle emotional currents at work. Her blends worked to rebalance each person, regardless their emotional state. Wanting the tea to bring everyone into a state of calm, she poured them another cup. She leaned toward Silesia. "Are you okay? It's hot." "Hot. Right. Got the message." Silesia blew on the cup and sipped. "Oh, this is good." Maud turned to Ted. "And how are you, Ted?" Startled from his reverie, Ted took a moment. He reined in his disdain for what he thought an elaborate charade. "This is different from the expected traditional tea ceremony." "Oh, what have you heard? I never tell people to expect that." "Well, to start," he pointed at Silesia, "this badly dressed, classless woman is rude, won't stop talking, doesn't carry a fan." Silesia scowled and rummaged through her purse. Pulling out a battery-operated fan, she switched it on. The little propeller spun, blowing strands of her hair back. With eyes fluttering, she smiled at the breeze in her face. Giggling, she aimed it at Ted, blocking the draft with his hands. He said, "Never mind. Turn it off. Keep it to yourself." Silesia winked at Maud and, giggling, returned the fan to her purse. Ted said, "So much for tranquility. This is my point. How do you dare pretend this tattered facade is a tea ceremony? You exhibit only the shallowest grasp of time-honored rituals. This is just a load of frayed, new age claptrap, hiding behind the trappings of a traditional tea ceremony. I'm sorry, my pores have been misrepresented. Would you like more tea? I mean, where's the respect, the purity, and the reverence? Maud held her look. After a moment, he held his cup out. He wouldn't let go when Maud tried to take it. Careful not to burn him, she refilled his cup. It's hot, I know. He gave Silesia a stern look and brushed off his leg. Maud noticed that Silesia had begun to fidget. She declined more tea. Silesia, tell us what brings you here, she sighed. It's all about my roommates. They aren't pets, but they're hamsters. Well, about 6 months ago, I was feeling lonely in my beautiful, spacious apartment. So I bought a couple of friends. Hate to have to buy a friend. Seems so entitled, but can't exactly meet a hamster at the local club. Maud nodded. Ted rolled his eyes. He whispered, "Can't you shut her up?" Everything was cool for a while. We got on famously. But then one day, I came home and discovered an extra dozen of the little critters. Who knew? All in one cage? Appalled, Silesia practically shouted. Oh, no. I would never cage my friends. What do you take me for? Agitated, Ted said. But is right. That was only the beginning. I've lost count. And that isn't even the worst part. Neither Maud nor Ted wanted to hear the worst. I discovered that they ate one of them. Maud nodded impassively. Yes, but nothing. I admit, I'm not that bothered that his family ate their baby brother. I mean, get real. Babies do get eaten. But poor little Jimmy. I'll never forget when I found little Jimmy was the hamster. Silesia looked at Ted like he was a lunatic. Focus, Ted. The circle of life and all that. I miss him. And Maud said, yes, I cannot get over. She dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Maud and Ted leaned in. After everything I did, just can't believe that they ate meat. Ted feigned a coughing fit to cover his laughter. Silesia waited for it to subside. I mean, what did I do wrong? How could they? Didn't I raise them right? You know, to be vegetarian. I thought they were. I didn't skimp in sympathy. Maud touched Silesia's right hand. She covered Maud's with her left. Maud placed her free hand on top of Silesia's. Misty-eyed, they turned to Ted. He said, "Looks like you're first at bat, Maud." They didn't understand. He said, "So, is this it? Sorry, but I have to get on with my day." Maud straightened up. "No, Ted. Now that we're in sync with each other, I'll serve another tea. One made for you alone. A special tea? Just for me?" Oh, boy. Maud resisted trying to kill Ted. She wouldn't poison him. At least, not in the usual way. But I'm not about to let this hack destroy everything I've built. She wanted Ted's comeuppance, not his life. this potion would take his words, silence him, at least for a few days. He said, "So what's in this special tea?" "Hold the cyanide." Only he laughed. Maud said, "I can't reveal my secret recipe, but it contains a mixture of frankincense, sandalwood, ylang-ylang, rose, pepperum. I could go on. You get the idea." Ted and Silesia were awed at the complexities of Maud's preparations. And Silesia, don't feel left out. I've also designed a special blend for you. They sat expectantly. Maud poured Ted's tea from a pot she'd set aside and handed him the small porcelain cup. He reached out, but stopped. Putting his hand up, he shook his head. "No thanks. The cup is chipped. I'll pass." Maud recovered. "You don't understand, Ted. It's not a chip. Only an irregularity in the glaze. These rare cups are highly prized, eagerly sought for." Ted couldn't care less. Silesia watched, fascinated. Maud continued, "You've heard of the Japanese tradition of mending a broken bowl with a vein of gold lining the crack? This is similar," Silesia said. "Oh, don't waste it. Give it to me." She reached out, "But it wasn't made for you. It's Ted's. Don't worry. I'll manage. It sounds delicious." This had never happened before. And this tea was pivotal to Maud's plan. She said, "If you insist." Ted said, "We all do." Silesia took Ted's cup, sipped, and smiled. Beginning to speak, she stopped and could only say, "More?" Not used to losing control, Maud refreshed Silesia's cup. Ted smiled at Silesia. "Ah, miss, the power of the well-chosen word." Silesia nodded, but could say nothing. Ted turned to Maud and said, "Good. You shut her up. At last." "I'll have some too," Maud said. "Yes, you need something. I can't have you go thirsty." Deftly switching pots, she poured him a cup of calming tea. They each smiled as he took the cup. He raised it in a mock toast and sipped. "Wow, that's delicious." He loosened his tie. "Maybe you sensed this, Maud, with your acute observational powers. I need to tell you. I write a column at the paper. Commentary, reviews, you know, opinions on the world at large." He leaned forward and took Maud's hand. "I am happy to say you've earned yourself a glowing review." Maud replied, "Ted? You? A writer? I had no idea." She refilled his cup with tea, promoting a positive attitude. Go with the flow, she thought. Silesia remained silent. Ted waxed poetic. Tranquility reigned, a bitter choice. The first thing he could recognize was an old, musty, wet scent. He's groggy, his mouth is dry, and his head hurts, but he feels warmth on his face. With that, he hears a crackling fire. Attempting to lift his hand to his face, he realizes his hands are tied. His feet are tied. He opens his eyes and can see that he is tied to a chair. His eyes get used to the fire's dim light, and he is seated in an old, dusty room with wooden beams at a small round table with a teapot and teacup in the middle. He smells the scent of steeping tea. He starts to feel panic and realizes that he is well and indeed tied to the chair, and he's not getting out. His mind races like anyone's would in this predicament. Who did this? Why me? Why am I here? His usual defensive bravado kicks in, but he quickly realizes there's no one here to impress, to convince, or so he initially thought. Swiveling his head, looking around for anything to help him escape, a way out, or a clue as to where he is, he yelps when he sees her. There, by the fire, a young woman stands. She is tall, curvier than he prefers, and simply dressed. She doesn't make a single sound. She seems calm as she continues looking into the flames while holding her cup of tea and quietly sipping. Who the hell is she? At first, he thinks this is a first date gone wrong, but then he sees her face, and he recognizes her. I know her, but his head is so foggy. Did she drug me? He can't place her face. He feels the first beads of sweat dripping down his face as he tries to look around for someone else to help, or something to lean against to free himself. Looking around and listening, he confirms they are the only two here. Where the hell am I? Is this a cottage? In New York City? After spending precious moments trying to make sense of this, he shakes it off and starts to take in more of the space, thinking of creative ways to get himself free. If I can just get free, she's just one woman. He thinks to himself, I've managed worse. She doesn't acknowledge his panic. She slowly looks at the fire and sips her tea. If she's this calm, she has a plan. He could handle emotions, tears, and outbursts. But calm women never spelled a good time to him. Noticing him finally, the woman looks over at him, and it barely registers on her face that he is awake. She takes another sip of tea and moves to the table, taking the other seat across from him. She looks down at her hands and places them on the table. Only then does he see her entire face when she looks him in the eye. He is immediately filled with fear. Fuck, he says, and stills in, struggling with his restraints. She smiles lightly at his remark. I knew you to be more eloquent than that, waving it off. But again, I did catch you off guard. Catching himself, he prepares to put on a show. Ellie, what's going on? What happened? How are we here? How are you here? I thought you had left the country. I've been so worried about you. I tried to write a call or text, but I didn't have your information. You have no idea how worried I've been after everything you've gone through, what we've gone through. She said nothing, and continued staring at him with the calm, blank stare she'd had when she first sat down. "Look, honey, what happened was horrible. So many terrible losses and accidents. When your brother—" He paused when he heard her quick inhale. Her head whipped to the side like she had been slapped. And when she looked back at him, he saw fury in her eyes. "If this is about the money, I can pay you. But you have no right to do this. To what? Kidnap me? Drug me? What else are you going to do? You don't have the guts to do any real damage. What do you think is going to happen? Let's talk this out, like calm adults. You're making a mountain from a molehill. Nothing that happened was my fault." He was about to dig into his routine defense that he'd done during police questioning and lawyers listening. But she held up a hand. "Martin, it's not about money. It never was for our family. Though I know that's all you understand, so this may be a tough concept. It's about the truth." She stands slowly, gracefully grabbing the teacup and placing it before him, pausing to take a look at him. The first proper look she's taken of him in 5 years since everything happened. You'd think with all that money, you'd have taken better care of yourself. She moves the tea kettle closer to the cup and settles back in her chair. "I was surprised how big you've gotten. I'm grateful I got the extra rope. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so snug and cozy on that chair," she said, sitting back and putting her hands in her lap. Martin looks at the teacup. It's empty. Then he looks at the tea kettle. He can see steam rising from the spout and smell tea. He looks back at her and sees that she has a calm, serene smile. "What the fuck do you want, Ellie?" he says, defeated, realizing he will have to play whatever game she has set up and outsmart her, like he does with everyone. "I've made you a soothing tea, but I want to tell you a story first," she says. And he sees a brief shadow of darkness across her face. Was it a shadow? Or is it her anger? Either way, it can't be good. She takes a deep breath and begins her tale. There was a family, a happy and loving family. They weren't perfect. No one was. But they were happy. A mother, a father, a daughter, and a younger brother. They had been building a nice estate as a family since her brother was back from college, and their daughter was running their company business. Combined, their wealth was not something to write to the Times about, but it afforded them a lifestyle and attention. They were comfortable, happy, giving much back to their community, and always the first people to help those in need. Reaching back for her own tea, she sipped. Then a man introduced himself. The man saw that their kindness and eagerness to help were things to be preyed upon and taken advantage of. "That's where you come in, Martin," she said, leaning her elbows on the table and putting her head in her hands. He could tell she was comfortable, so he listened, waiting for his time to strike. This charming, crass, but witty man came to this family with an opportunity, an opportunity to do so much good. You did your homework there, didn't you, Marty? Knowing my father had been dying to help those less fortunate in other parts of the world, but didn't have the gift or health to travel like he'd like. So you offered your assistance. She continued, "Look, your father was an adult and made a decision he shouldn't have. It's not my fault he was as gullible as he was fragile in health." Martin interjected, but it didn't move or ruffle her as he hoped. Again, he could deal with outbursts and emotions, but that calm quiet unnerved him. "My father trusted you. He gave you a sum of money the first time. I don't want to know how you substantiated the positive works the money did for those families," she said, leaning back and drumming her fingers on the table. "AI has come a long way these days. It's not my fault he couldn't see the flaws." He tried to add that charm, but failed because he kept looking back at the tea. "Is it poisoned? Is she going to kill me with the teapot? Seems a bit violent for her," he thought. But he'd been surprised by her already. She scoffed at his remark. "You continued to take his money and show these manufactured images and proof of goodwill for 2 years, until he gave you access to our funds without knowing you had cheated him. You promptly drained those funds, millions of dollars, and disappeared, funneling the money to an untraceable account. No court would mandate a warrant or search for you. Again, sweetie, it's not my fault your father was an idiot, and you could have stopped him," he said, thinking the sweat from his palms could help loosen the rope around his wrists. She went on, "The stress of this loss and the bureaucratic failing that is our justice system caused my already fragile father to suffer a heart attack and die, leaving my mother a husk of a woman. I had to step away from the business and take care of her. My brother took over the company. You had thoroughly gutted those funds to barely enough to keep the lights on. The debt drowned my brother and his sanity, and he took his own life. The loss of both men caused my mother to stop living. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't sleep. She just wept. Until one day, she just stopped breathing. The doctors say it was a brain aneurysm. It was heartache," she says with tremendous confidence. She gets up and goes to the fire. He sees her shaking. Is it from the cold or from anger? He continues his slow struggle to free his hand from the ropes, but knows it won't do any good. He just has to wait and see how this plays out. "Look, Ellie, I'm sorry this all happened to you. I really did send some money to those charities. He had to," he thought. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to get their government-valid invoice for his tax write-offs, which he forged. "And everything that happened to your family, you can't blame those freak incidents on me. It just doesn't make sense. And you've always been a sensible woman. Let's just talk like adults, and we can find the reason behind all this." He began preparing more excuses, but he saw that she didn't even react. She took a slow breath while staring into the fire. "You ruined us for nothing but greed." He didn't know what to say, so she turned and stared at him. "For greed," she whispered. Taking her time, she returned to the table and picked up the teapot. Keeping eye contact with him, she poured the tea into the cup. She placed the teapot back down on the table. Stepping behind him, she stills. In that pregnant pause of silence, horrifying scenarios rush into his mind. Is she going to smash my face against the table? Was it a ploy? Is she going to slit my throat or strangle me? He hears her take a deep breath, unties one of his hands, and slowly takes her seat across from him, unafraid of what he might do with one hand free. "The tea is yours, Martin. A gift from me," she says, leaning back in the chair. He looked at the cup. The dark liquid smelled rich and fragrant. Was it poisoned? Maybe. Maybe not. If she wanted to kill him, wouldn't she have done it already? Why wait so long? Why all the dramatics? Was she testing his conscience? Joke's on her. He doesn't think he has one. A twisted act of mercy? Instead of a violent death he would likely have had from the latest con, he'd definitely turned on the wrong family. That was not his best work. He'd been getting sloppy. So what? He drinks it? If he refuses, will she force him? He stares at the cup. As I said before, this is about trust. It's about faith in kindness, in my kindness. Do you have that faith, Martin? Pausing, she watches his internal struggle. "Take a drink, Martin," she says, leaning forward. He could throw it in her face as a distraction, but it's not hot enough to do any damage, and he still would be stuck in this chair. It wouldn't distract her enough to manage an escape. "And if I don't?" he asks quietly. She cocked her head to the side and knowingly smiled, confirming that if he didn't, she'd force it. With a deep breath and trembling hand, he lifts the cup to his lips and drinks. He watches her face as the warm, bitter tea slides down his throat. He stares at her as he waits to feel anything. His heart pounds. Is this it? Or is it nerves? What else will I start feeling? Throat burning? Organ failure? Ellie watches him in silence. Her expression is unreadable. 1 minute passes, then another, and another. He feels no pain. Was there even any poison? Was it just tea? He laughs nervously with relief. He can feel sweat dripping from his face. That's it? That was your big revenge? Making me squirm and sweat? sneering at her. I knew you didn't have it in you. Weak, just like your whole family. Ellie smiles and leans closer, whispering, Who said the poison works fast? Martin's smug smile falters. He looks at the cup, the back at Ellie's serene face. What do you mean? He blurts out between panicked breaths. She stands and picks up her coat, and he sees her demeanor change to light and easy. Some things take time, Marty. She pauses and smiles at him. It could be days. It could be weeks. It could be in your sleep. It could be during your favorite meal. And it causes a devastating reaction. It could be tomorrow in a crowded room. You'll just have to wait and see and hope. She tosses a kid's Swiss Army knife on the table and walks out. He stares at the closed door in horror. He's alive, for now. But for how long? The fear will never leave him. With every meal, every sip, every breath, he will wonder if it will his last. Bloody tea leaves and fucking coffee beans. They banned folks from toting teapots and kettles, classifying them as weapons of war. Frank remembers clearly that day, the day Dictator-in-Chief declared a state of emergency. Remembers all the stooges and quislings who clapped. Remembers the collective liberal orgasm, and how the elites, academics, and cultural icons collectively smirked. Then came the run-of-the-mill anecdotes. Soldiers whose scalded limbs had been, or had to be, amputated. Women whose lives had been altered because the long arm of the law couldn't prevent their partners from keeping tea leaves and coffee beans on their shelves, under pillows and in their pockets everywhere they went. Even children were paraded about, exploited as a major reason tea and coffee had to be abolished from both street corner and corner cafe. Of course, Starbucks and Dunkin's went into a frenzy. Their lobbyists and plants in press rooms went to town. They were neither alone nor wrong. Frank and other tea addicts and coffee fiends went into overdrive too. Government officials, armed to the teeth, retaliated, confiscating cups, teapots, and everything construed as having the potential for making tea. Even bloody spoons. He fought back when they kicked his front door in. He was made a prisoner under the law, but worse, under a presumptuous therapist. 2. You think I'm crazy, don't you? You think I'm all bonkers? What makes you think I think that, Frank? That you just did it. What did I do? Tried to be clever. People like you? People like me? Yes. Like you. Yes. Like my wife. Educated. Yet godless. People like me loathe people like you as much as you hate us, she asked incessantly, and prodded deeper. He eventually talked about war, about his role in the last one, and about man in general, and the eternal romance between him and war. He licked his lips and rubbed his hands together as he spoke. You want to know why man keeps to war, Miss Hatina? She nodded. War don't file for divorce. She choked on her own saliva. We'll come to your ex-wife later. Let's stick to the war for now. They talked about it briefly. A lukewarm room becoming warmer. If you've never watched a friend's head split in half, you've no reason to sit there and tell me about this BPST nonsense. All this PTSD, whatever the creature's name is called. I saw real creatures, fought real dragons. Death was both my enemy and soulmate. She sat there and listened, and listened, and listened. With 7 minutes on the clock remaining, she finally cleared her throat. I don't understand everything you went through, Frank, and I'll never pretend to. My job is only to help. He nodded. She continued, because there's some good place in your soul, Frank. I want you to lead me there. Meanwhile, I'll be interpreting the road signs as we encounter them for you. Do you want me to come along? He smiled. The soldiers guarding his fort chose to lower both sword and spear. I guess you, the 6-foot-something battle-hardened soldier in the arena of the mind, Miss Hatina, you're correct. But since we'll be walking to a faraway place together, I guess you can call me Rose. Rumor had it I'd be talking to a Mrs. something. She showed him the finger where a ring used to be. And Frank, well, beamed. 3. They banned them from toting teacups, spoons, sugar basins, and so forth. That's why you won't find them on Main Street anymore. Starbucks was shut down. Dunkin's will follow soon, unless they agree to sell frappes and ice cream exclusively. Beverages that don't burn women and children. Frank finds himself in a maze, zigzagging his way in the slippery alleyways of downtown Kiwagama to quench his craving for the hot stuff. A thirst he contracted on the front lines. Dilapidated buildings cry through rusty gutters. Neon lights stutter like a car with insufficient dinosaur juice. A black cat meows and crosses in front of him. A dog howls at the thinnest slice of moon cosmically possible. A drunk slips. His bottle turns to powder in a muddy puddle. Steam rises from a manhole. Dear steam. A whiff of it dances towards the moon like an apparition. A shadow appears from around the corner and whistles at Frank. He follows. Not long after, an iron door gaps its jaws open and swallows Frank and his guide. Men with steaming teapots and kettles on the verge of hissing surround him. The spouts are longer than Pinocchio's nose after his girlfriend asks how she looks in some silly Halloween costume. Salt water germinates from his every pore, and his bladder tightens as they frisk him. Satisfied, they conceal their beverage brewers in their roomy jackets. He's led up a staircase whose stairwells are carpeted by needles, broken bottles, and used condoms. The air is damp and putrid. Steam rises. Steam, steam, steam. He shivers from steam that refuses to be blown off. steam that, left unchecked, will one day be sufficient to power a dystopian locomotive. A CCTV camera buzzes. Feet are dragged towards the door. Crimson light radiates from a peephole before the deadbolt clinks. "Come in," says a tall, broad-shouldered fellow with a huge scar waiting to spring from under his long beard and show its fangs. For, in every session thereafter, she helped him paint a picture. He talked about war, asked about university. She painted the experience in mostly positive terms. "Loads of hookups?" he said. They were getting too cozy. "Not enough," she answered with pouted lips. "I noticed a hickey on your neck the other day, coupled with what you just told me. Is that why you broke up? Cold intimacy, the lack thereof? Frank, this is all I'm going to say about this. I was once upon a time a happily married woman, until I wasn't. Well, that makes two of us, if it makes you feel better. You see, I might not have fought a war, but we've so much in common than you think." He beamed. "Do we now? I believe all humans have. What really happened, Rose? I understand the power dynamic here, but even Mussolini dangled carrots." She laughed. "Okay then. We got lazy, grew tired, and drifted apart. He blames me, and I blame him. You've kids?" "No, Frank, we don't. Do you date?" She froze and cursed herself for being sidetracked so easily. "Tell me about your upbringing, Frank." He talked about his childhood stammer, about his first crush, then opened up about his father. "All my friends had their dads present growing up. They went fishing, threw ball, showed up at games. What did I have? An absent dad and absent-minded mother whose descriptions of my pops when we had conversations about him were pretty ugly. Basically called him a brute. After which she'd tell me I was my father's child whenever I did something. Like what? Hit someone in the head with a bat. She jotted something in her notebook. He started to realize, on his own, how the heat of life and circumstance has been bringing him to a boil ever since childhood. No wonder he felt like exploding and powering steam engines while at it. He talked about how he found himself in a vortex of alcohol, syringes, and women with brown teeth and skimpy clothes as soon as he hit puberty. "Why do you think you went there?" she said, sipping hot beverage he said he'd never been a fan of. Truthfully, bigger boys convinced us smaller ones that was what being a man was all about. "But you didn't like it?" "Well, you know, even hell has its moments, I'd wager," she chuckled. "What changed?" "An STI," she giggled some. He saw it and chuckled wryly. "I realized being a man doesn't always mean you should die early or pointlessly. Like, if you're gonna die early anyway, like I always felt I would. Why not spend your short life in the defense of others?" "You became a man." "Definitely. Served my country, came back, got married, had a kid. Then she left with another man." A long pause in which all the sound heard was sipping and stirring of tea. But ironically, the steam which rose to the ceiling and covered the room in a film wasn't from the beverage. It was from the purple reservoir of his emotions. She'd to turn the air conditioner on. After his kettle stopped whistling, she ventured. How did that make you feel? That I should have died in the war. What about now? Sweaty, hot, fuming, jealous. I don't know. You're lying to me, Frank. Redness reappeared on Frank's face. I feel like shit, if you really want to know. Why? That's what I'm here to understand, ain't it? I'm here to help. Just. It alternates between I screwed up, my wife screwed me over by screwing some screw up, or the screw up who screwed my wife screwed me over. My mind ain't sure what to hold on to. Ex-wife now, Frank. Remember, she's water under the bridge now. A thick vein popped on the man's forehead. She was stolen from me. She made a choice, Frank. His voice brewed a purple storm. They took the house. My fucking house. By law, Frank. Frank threw the notebook on his lap at the window. It sublimated into shards. He pushed the couch back violently and wagged his fist at thin air. They took my daughter from me. Is that the law, too? No? Yes? Well, I'll tell you what. The law is wrong for taking my daughter away from me. The law is bloody wrong. 5. The dealer finishes a call before his attention turns to Frank. 2 ladies flank him on either side, gyrating slightly to the thumping of 808s coming from an adjoining room. There's a bouncer on each of the 4 corners of the makeshift office space. My boy, Frankie. When my boys told me about you, ain't believed shit they said. Said you was a big man now. Told them every big man's working for me since the ban. He laughs. But here you are. You done become bigger than a hippo. In good ways, of course. Thanks, Bobo. What if I make you offer? Huh? For old time's sake. Frank fidgets excessively. What offer? Come work for me. There's good money here. Big, fat money to be made. An older lady brings Gras whiskey in 2 glasses. With all due respect, Bobo, says Frank soon after the lady leaves. Ain't looking for no job. The room goes taut. So why's you here, Frankie? They take turns to sip the old man's health. Frank's gaze darts about. For, you know, the thing? Frankie, don't try to be clever with me. I know you here for the hot stuff. But why is what I ask you? Because, Bobo, only you knows how to get things like that. Bobo smiles proudly. What you want the hottie-hottie for? Self-defense. There's an entire ministry of, I trust my own fingers than the entire ministry. Bobo laughs and claps his hands. Perfect. Had to test you to see whether you bulk under pressure or not. I only deal with solid folk. He regards Frank for a bit. The latter breathes heavily. Steam blows out of his ears and nose like a malfunctioning toy dragon. But he keeps still. I ain't one to judge. But anger breeds nothing. Frankie, nothing. Forget that woman. You come work with me. There's plenty of women to pass around here. See all this? Plenty. Does the package you suggesting include my daughter? Bobo gestures for something to be brought into the room. He does the sign of the cross. Anger burns you, Frankie boy. You, not nobody else. God won't say, I didn't warn y'alls. They bring the man his order. A collector's wet dream. Like one of those brewing pots Grandpa used to keep, and Grandma used to pester him about. Why you don't keep it as far away from reach as possible. You want your grandkids to be caught up in that life too? Grandpa had a well-known addiction for the stimulant. He'd a lot of scars to show for the burns he'd endured over the years. Because anytime's tea time. That's why. Looks good alrighty, Frankie? Frank nods. Good. But where's the coffee beans? Where's the what? I'm sorry. I'm used to calling, aha! Coffee beans. I think I know what coffee beans is. Gary, you get it too? One of the bodyguards nods when the dealer looks at him. He turns back to Frank. You a clever buggers, Frankie. Pity you don't want work. We could use some creativity here. Martin, you brought this man a pot of steaming nothing, you see? Bring the man his bloody tea leaves and fucking coffee beans. Money exchanges hands. So does a brown paper bag in the opposite direction. Frank starts to leave. Remember, don't spill the beans about me, Frankie, or my men will spill something hot on your baby girl. And unlike you, I'm a very literal man. 6. They texted and laughed and looked each other in the eye. When they looked each other in the eye long enough, the hands of her eyes pulled his face closer. Space between them crumbled. Their faces rammed into each other's. Sparks flew. Passions exploded into groaning, screaming, and orgasms. They met at the office to talk about demons, online to flirt, and at her place to talk about the future. She showed him a diary she kept when she was 6. He noticed a particular motif. On every other page was a rough sketch of a girl carrying things like knives, razors, guns, and catapults. You wanted to hurt someone? Frank said, after kissing her bare chest. Kill someone. Well, did you succeed? Not that I'm aware of. Who are all these people? Everyone. I hated everyone. My sis was too pretty. My cousin was too liked. Hannah Montana was too popular. She's in here? Flip a page. Again. There she is. God, you were so twisted. What changed? She sighed. A ballpoint pen and a teapot. What? We'd a bully at school. A boy who got away with everything. One time, I snapped and sunk my bic in his face. God, yeah. It was atrocious. Got me expelled. Mom thought I'd learnt my lesson. Grandma thought not. She boiled water in a kettle and called me over. Made me stretch my hands towards the pot. Don't tell me she poured hot water on your hands. Fingers. Yeah, that's a lot better. She's like, every time you let your anger boil over and think about hurting someone, think about this kettle. Today, I'm the one pouring hot water on you. but one day it will be the world. I'm trying to understand her philosophy, but what does that even mean? Our anger hurts us as much as, or more than, it hurts the people we lash out at. When I'm angry, I think about how much hot water I'm pouring on myself. And it works all the time. Flip a page, again. There you go. That's you in a kitchen. That's me carrying the proverbial teapot. I substituted it for my weapons, sketched it over a knife or a razor. You can do it too. I'm an army man. They recently banned my kind of weapon. Well, I know you know where to get one if you really wanted it. Please think about my grandma's metaphor and me when you think about hurting anyone ever again. You will? I will. They kissed. His hand rested on a breast. Someone opened the door, saw them digging gems out of each other, and dropped the flower bouquet he carried. She leapt from Frank's lap and rushed after him. 7. Above all else, Frank hates liars. The only person he hates more than he who generally lies is he who lies specifically to him, and everyone seems to take advantage of his willingness to give the benefit of doubt. Politicians lied about the war, about its purpose. Now they're lying about the purpose of some laws. But politicians are known to lie. Who believes politicians anyway, in this day and age? His father said he was going around the block. He never returned. Mother lied about why he chose to do that. To save face, his wife. Don't people take "till death do us part" literally anymore? Then there's Rose. No, she's the therapist now. She was cheating on her husband, with him no less, making him no better than his wife's. She's your ex-wife now, lover. You don't do that. And now she's trying to call. He's not picking that. What for? More bullshit? He languishes in his car, busy brewing. 6 tea bags in a kettle, 6 coffee beans in a coffee machine. He turns the knobs to boil until the lid starts dancing and the spout sputtering. A police siren wails. The cabin turns icy. They pass. Steam resumes. He cocks them both. Oops, better stay with Grandma's metaphor. But it's slipping. They banned these from ever finding their way into hands like his. Because of this, he sees them. He sees her. A hot spring blasts the crown of his head. He's out. He's striding. They see him. Too late. Kettle hisses, then regurgitates. It starts raining on him too. Torrential rainfall at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Swiped. He's here. And he's just as hot as his pictures, Charlotte texted from outside of the cafe. She moved 2 steps to her right. Jen responded with a string of emojis. Bearded man face, burning heart, guy and girl, kissing faces. Charlotte smiled and checked her hair in the reflection of the ramen place next door, getting faint notes of the meaty umami. All that her still partially stuffed nose would allow. Her phone buzzed. Charlotte swiped to see it was Jen, with another string of emojis. Sweaty face, fire, tongue, peace hand symbol, yum face, eggplant, peach, splash, snoring face, quickly followed by have fun, winking face. Charlotte applied lip gloss with her freshly manicured hand, pink nails matching her pick lip gloss, fluffed her hair, and snapped a selfie. Sending the filtered picture to Jen, she typed, "I'm going in." Jen hearted Charlotte's selfie and responded, "Sweep him off his hot feet. Call if it gets weird. I'll be right there." Charlotte hearted the message, stood up straight, shifted her shoulders back and down, and pouted her lips and eyes, the face that always attracts attention. Charlotte and Alex had been talking for 2 weeks, first through the app's messenger, then texting, then hours-long conversations in the evenings. She finally agreed to a date, in public, during the day, at a location of her choosing. Charlotte, 29, was growing tired of the bar scene, the one-night stands. She enjoyed the attention, but she craved a man she could still stand on Sunday, a man she could go on a proper date with, spend an entire Saturday with wearing t-shirts, watching movies, and ordering takeout. She wanted a boyfriend, one she could introduce to her parents, a boyfriend she could marry. She wanted a husband who would help her raise her son. Charlotte's family came from old money. Her parents still lived in the plantation house where she was raised, the house that her father inherited. Her father drank bourbon, neat. He married his high school sweetheart. His wife had no need to work. Her working would only reflect poorly on the well-to-do family. They had pure bred golden retrievers. They went to church on Sunday mornings. They had one perfect, gorgeous girl who had the world handed to her on an antique silver, lace, doily-lined platter. Her AKC registered puppy by her side. She had a tutor and made straight A's. She went to Sunday school and could recite scripture. She played piano. She was a cheerleader and homecoming queen. She attended a debutante ball at 16 when she presented her parents a sonogram image of a 9-week-old life almost 2 months later. They pulled her out of her Christian school and transferred her to a boarding school more than 100 miles away so that she could finish her education without the distraction of devil-worshipping sinners occupying the halls of this shameful excuse of Jesus' house. After the baby was born, her parents funded lavish childcare so that Charlotte could graduate high school and attend college. She graduated summa cum laude and looked fabulous doing it. She ran on a treadmill and did pallets daily to lose the baby weight. Her parents' allowance afforded her regular Botox, laser body hair removal, weekly mani-pedis, monthly hair appointments, boutique clothing and jewelry, and cutting-edge skincare products and treatments. She was flawless, despite the constant drunken late nights, the Adderall to stay up, the Xanax to come down, the Zoloft to get her through each day. Her unlimited supply, thanks to Dr. Dad. Wealthy eyes don't carry bags. Charlotte met Alex through a dating app. She swiped right without reading his bio, which she intended not to do. She wanted a boyfriend, not a boy toy. But that smile, those dimples, the perfectly messy hair, the shadow of a beard she imagined would send chills down her spine when they kissed, enough to drive her wild. Reading his bio, Charlotte found herself instantly lost in an imaginary future with him. The Spanish colonial home, yoga in the garden, her marketing businesses thriving, his groundbreaking medical research changing the course of cosmetic surgery, tapas on the veranda, summers in London visiting his family. Alex sat at a table in direct eyesight of the entrance. A perfect man at a perfect table, far enough from the entrance to escape the heat, but well within the afternoon glow, bathing his skin in gold, and within clear view of her favorite barista, Naomi. Naomi always anticipated Charlotte's every need and filled it before Charlotte noticed what she lacked. Charlotte strutted directly towards Alex, the light forming a halo around her flawless silhouette. She smiled and waved to Naomi, whose facial rings shimmered in the sun. Alex stood to greet her, dressed exactly as she imagined he would. Beige linen pants, vertically striped cotton shirt with a deep V-neck, and pristinely clean brown leather sneakers. He smiled. "Wow," he said. "You're even more gorgeous in person." His British accent, the icing on the perfectly constructed cake in front of her. "You are looking quite good yourself," she responded. Alex leaned in for a friendly kiss on the cheek. Charlotte stepped back, placing a hand between their faces. "I'm still getting over this," she grimaced, pointing in the general direction of her face. "Gotta love those summer colds." "I understand." Please, sit," he invited as he pulled out her chair. Charlotte sat and smoothed the skirt of her silk mini dress. "What can I get for you? I'll place the order for us. I'll take a chamomile tea with honey and lemon, please." "Right." Alex stood at the counter between two glass cases of freshly baked muffins, scones, cookies, and tarts. A large basket of fresh fruit in front of the register. Charlotte watched him place their order. Her chamomile tea and his tall, black Americano. He was very polite to Naomi, charming, almost flirtatious. He tapped his phone on the card reader to complete the transaction. He turned to meet Charlotte at the table, but changed his mind. Actually, can I purchase one of those peaches? They look delectable, from a local orchard. Perfect time of year, Naomi answered. Alex peeked around the basket and selected one. How much? He asked. Naomi smiled. On the house? Alex looked at Charlotte, then back at Naomi, confused. You're a friend of Charlotte's. She keeps us all employed. Naomi winked at Charlotte, who returned the playful look. The cafe's owner, Tracy, approached Naomi then. See you in the morning, kid. I'm heading home. She slung her computer bag over her shoulder, exposing a bandaged pinky. Cat scratch you again? Naomi joked. Damn plastic wrap. Sliced it right open. Naomi nodded. Call if you need anything. Otherwise, I'll meet you here, bright and early, Tracy said sarcastically. You know you can just give me a set of keys, and you can sleep sometimes, Naomi called to Tracy on her way out. Tracy smiled and winked. Keep up the good work, kid. You'll get there. Tracy disappeared into the sunlight. Back at their table now, Alex joked. I didn't know I was with a local celebrity. Shall I pick up the drinks when they're ready? Naomi will bring them right to us. Brilliant. So, Charlotte, we meet at last. He placed his peach on the small plate Naomi gave to him and unwrapped his silverware roll. Naomi appeared with their hot drinks, your tea with honey and lemon, and your Americano, black, she recited as she gently placed the hot mugs in front of them. Thank you, Naomi, Charlotte said, as the barista walked back around the counter. Yes, we meet at last. She squeezed lemon juice into her tea and stirred in some honey. Cheers! Alex held up his mug. Cheers, Charlotte mirrored. I thought you Brits drank tea over there. Well, when in America, as they say. Alex sipped his coffee. So, tell me more about your first few days at the hospital. Not the onboarding stuff, or the people, but the work. The meat and potatoes, as we say. Charlotte rested her elbows on the table and cradled her chin. She was all his, right? I mean, where to start? I am just gobsmacked. Alex's face lit up. The operating theater they built is suited for the Queen. Top surgeons will fly in on a weekly basis for my lecture. From there, training. Who would have thought my research would have the reach it has? And cosmetic surgery is growing more and more by the day due to increasing accessibility. Now just imagine. I mean, costs will be reduced considerably. As Alex went on with his research, Charlotte drifted off into daydreams. She wasn't interested in his work. She was interested in his paycheck, his face, and his body. She nodded and smiled, raised her eyebrows from time to time, inserted an interested "oh" occasionally. As he talked, she devised a plan to hook him for good. Before he knew what hit him, he would be her husband, stepfather to her son. She entertained his dissertation about facial symmetry and flesh, even as Naomi visited to see if they needed anything. Alex's eyes were locked on Charlotte's. So animated, eyes wide, arms gesturing this way and that. Charlotte gave Naomi an apologetic look and motioned that they were fine. Naomi turned to walk away and stopped dead in her tracks when she heard Alex describe human flesh with the same excited tone he used to describe the peaches. She glanced back at Alex, whose back was to her. Charlotte clocked Naomi's troubled look, but with a reassuring nod and smile, Naomi went back to taking orders. "Would you like to see it sometime?" Charlotte heard Alex say. Caught off guard with a question, she asked, "See what? Surgery?" "Oh, no. No. The mock theater I built, where I practice at home," he answered. "Oh," she hesitated. "Sure. I think I could come by one day." She bought herself some time. "What about today? Now? My place is just around the corner." "What do you say?" "Well, I still have this cold. One outing in a day is probably all I have energy for," she said nervously. "Anyhow, I can probably demonstrate on this peach, now that I think of it. Do you have a pen?" Charlotte dug into her Gucci bag and located a pen. Before handing it to Alex, she discreetly took her phone out of the bag and placed it on her lap. "Here you go," she said, as she steadied her hand. He took the pen without looking at her. Alex drew 2 lines on the peach. "Like I was explaining, if the cheekbone is here," he pointed at a line, "you want to make your incision precisely." He took up the butter knife and carefully placed it along the second line. "Here." He punctured the skin, juice escaping the fruit, dripping down the peach. He smiled and applied more pressure, exposing the meat inside. Veiny, juicy, fleshy. "Yeah," Alex said, smiling. "Yeah," he said again, almost laughing. Charlotte looked for Naomi at the counter. She was distracted by a line of customers, unaware of the peach mutilation. "What do you practice on?" At home?" she asked Alex. "Pigs, mostly. Dead. Donated to science," he answered as he used his napkin to wipe the liquid evidence off his hands. "Pigs, mostly. So, pigs and... you know there is just no comparison to the beautiful, fatty flesh of a live human." Alex's eyes were wild, glued to Charlotte's. I have the nanny at home. I really should be going," she mumbled as she gathered her bag and started to stand. "Just let me show you this last thing, right? Then you'll go and get some rest?" He retrieved his phone from his pocket, looked at the screen to unlock it, and opened an app. He swiped a few times and turned the phone so that the screen faced her, still half standing. The image of her son playing in the park with the nanny glared back at her. She gasped and put a hand to her mouth. "Sit," Alex demanded quietly. Charlotte looked at Naomi again, still taking orders. She sunk into her seat. "Naomi can't help you, Charlotte." Without turning his phone around, he swiped through his photos. Picture after picture of the boy. At least a dozen. at school, in the back of her car, at home through windows, with her parents at the plantation home. Tears welled, and she used every ounce of strength to keep them from falling. You are going to suck those tears down, and you are going to come with me. We leave together as a happy couple. One wrong move, and the boy is dead. He locked his phone and put it back in his pocket. He cleared his throat and stood. Right then, "Shall we?" he said, smiling, his voice bouncy and pleasant. He held out a hand to Charlotte. She took it and stood. They walked out of the cafe hand in hand into the setting sun. The next morning, Naomi arrived at the cafe shortly after 5. Without keys, she'd be stuck outside waiting on Tracy, so she never arrived on time. After letting herself in, she stuffed her backpack in the cubby below the register. She clocked in, pulled her phone from her back pocket, found the playlist she wanted, and plugged it into the cafe's sound system. This was Naomi's way of letting Tracy know she had arrived without having to speak so early in the morning. The cafe's landline was blinking. Great. Another warning about our car insurance, Naomi thought, as she picked up the phone to listen to the message. "Hello. I know this might sound strange, but my friend was there yesterday to meet a date, and now I can't get in touch with her. We talk every day, especially after a date. Her name is Charlotte. She's tall, blonde, beautiful. She was meeting a guy named Alex, a doctor from London. She texted me right after 4 to tell me she was there. I don't know how long they stayed. Anyway, if anyone knows anything, can you please give me a call? I have to wait 24 hours to report her missing. It's just not like her. My name is Jen, by the way." Jen said her number before Naomi had a pen and something to write on, so she started the message over. At the end of the second listen, Naomi wrote down the number on a napkin and placed it under her phone. She wasn't calling anyone at that hour. Besides, Naomi sort of knew Charlotte. She wouldn't be surprised if she left with the weirdo and was still naked in his bed, sleeping off another drunk. Naomi continued with her morning routine. She opened the bin of Colombian breakfast blend beans. She grabbed the large scooper and looked down at the beans. She screamed and dropped the scooper. "Tracy," she pleaded. "Tracy, come out here." No answer. No sound. She pulled her phone off the cord, music still playing through her phone's speaker, and dialed 911 without pressing send. She looked around and tiptoed back to the coffee bin to confirm her nightmare. 2 pinky fingers, lifeless on a pile of beans, one with a perfectly manicured pink nail, one with a band-aid wrapped around the knuckle. "Oh, God!" she cried. She noticed a piece of paper sticking out from the manicured pinky. At closer look, the paper had writing on it. A note. With a trembling hand, Naomi reached into the bin, carefully maneuvering around the fingers. She grabbed a corner and quickly yanked the note out, shrieking, "Squeal, and you're next." She slid to the floor in hopeless panic. Note clutched in one hand, her phone clutched in the other. The Beatles' "I Want to Hold Your Hand" played softly from her phone. For such a time as this, once a week, for the past 10 weeks, Hattie had come to the local cafe for Bible study with a few of her friends from church. It was led by Marissa, one of the long-standing members of the church. Once a week, for the past 10 weeks, Hattie had left the cafe feeling uplifted, inspired, and closer to her Creator. And this week, the 11th week, she expected no different. Uplifting music wafted through the speakers, mixing with the sounds of dishes clanking and milk frothing behind the counter. The familiar noise was music to Hattie's ears as she entered the coffee shop. "Hattie!" Carmen squealed, beckoning Hattie over from the door. "Coffee's on me today. I got you your usual." Hattie smiled. Carmen was the personification of generosity, although that wasn't always the case. "How are you doing?" she asked, sliding into the booth that they always sat at. "Better than I deserve," Harper quoted, appearing behind them. It's what Carmen always said when asked that question. It's the truth. God is so good. As long as I'm breathing, it's more than I deserve. She shrugged. Harper slid into the booth next to Hattie, smiling. "Is Marissa late for the first time ever?" Hattie asked, looking around. "I thought I saw her car outside." In response, Marissa came out of the bathroom and joined the 3 college girls at their booth. "Good morning, girls," she said, eyes bright, as she took her seat next to Carmen. The 4 girls took each other's hands, and Marissa opened them in prayer before they opened their Bibles and began reading and discussing the book of Esther. Is it wrong to be so engrossed in divine wisdom that you lose track of what's happening around you? Surely not, although it can be dangerous. What is wrong is to come into a quiet, privately owned cafe at 11:38 a.m., lock the doors, aim a gun at the ceiling, and set it off. Which is exactly what happened next. The shot rang out in the near silence of the cafe, piercing through the air like only a bullet can, sending a singing bell into the ears of all who were near it. A young child across the shop screamed and was instantly grabbed by his mother, who hid under a table with her back to the aisle, blocking anyone from getting her child. A barista dropped a porcelain cup out of shock, and it shattered on the floor, spilling hot liquid everywhere. Hattie cupped her hands over her mouth so as to not scream. "Everybody hold up your phones," the man shouted, swinging his gun around. "Hold them up high." It took no time at all for everyone to comply. "Good. Now you." He pointed his gun at the man who was standing at the counter. "Go and get them. Bring all the phones to me." The barista couldn't have been more than 17. and his hands shook as he went around to each table and collected the phones. That 17-year-old boy wasn't religious, but at that moment, he was praying. Praying that somebody, anybody, had called the police. "It'll be okay, girls," Marissa whispered. Hattie could tell that she was trying to be strong, but she could also see the fear in her eyes when she glanced at the man with the gun. "You four." The man pointed his gun in the direction of Hattie and her friends, and it was at that point that Harper began to cry. "In front of the door. Stand." None of them knew what he meant, but he motioned for them to get up. And since he had a gun, they did what he asked. Then he did it again to the next table, making them stand in front of the windows. Soon, the whole store was stood in front of the glass entrance to the small cafe, including the little boy and his mother. While he was lining them up, the sound of sirens began, getting louder and louder, closer and closer, until they were too loud for Hattie to bear, and she covered her ears. Henry Walker, an amplified and slightly muffled voice, said from outside, "This is the New York City Police Department. We have the building surrounded. Come out with your hands up." Of course, Henry did no such thing, but waved his gun in the air, almost as if he was saying, "Don't try me." Next to Hattie, Carmen was holding her necklace so tightly that her knuckles were turning white, while her other hand was entwined with Harper's. Marissa's lips were moving, but there was no sound coming out. She was praying. Not a bad idea, Hattie thought. So she joined in. She closed her eyes and began to pray. As she did, words from the passages that the four girls had been going through came to mind. It was a popular verse, seen on stickers and coffee mugs, for such a time as this. Of course, the full verse was a bit more convicting, but that's the part that rang through Hattie's young mind as the minutes turned into hours. There was a clock on the wall behind the shop counter, and it served as a reminder of just how long these people had been standing here. 2:30, 3 hours, and the police had done nothing. "Why aren't they just coming in?" someone asked to Hattie's left. "We're blocking the door. They no doubt have a sniper on the roof, waiting to take the shot. But they can't, because they might hit one of us," she responded, her voice low. It had been too long standing here. She didn't want to do this, but she had put it off long enough. She took a deep breath, in and out. It always brought her peace, ever since she read that the name Yahweh was originally written without any vowels, and that in every breath you could hear it being said. Once she took a deep breath, she stepped forward, just a little bit. "What are you doing?" the guy with the gun asked, aiming his weapon at her chest. "Get back in line." "You don't look so good," Hattie said, her voice shaking ever so slightly. "Can I get you a cup of water?" Henry stared at her, as he considered this, evaluating, calculating, risk assessing. Hattie was doing the same, taking in the blood, soaking into the side of his shirt, the sweat dripping down his face, and the wideness of his eyes. "What's your name?" Henry narrowed his eyes at her. "Hadassah. People call me Hattie." No one called the girl by her real name these days, but she told him anyways. "I just thought that you might feel better if you had a cup of water." "Sorry." "Hadassah. Yes, I think a cup of water would help me feel better." "Thank you. Can you get one for me?" Hattie nodded, the weight of her decision settling in. No longer was she glanced over as just another piece of a hoard, but now she had been called out. She was in this. It took all of her strength to take the next few steps. All of them brought her closer to a dangerous man who seemingly did not care about her safety. But there was still a little inkling in the back of her mind, a blossom of hope that slowly bloomed as she poured some water from the tap into a plastic cup and brought it to him. That maybe, just maybe, this would all go to plan. Hope that they would all make it out of this alive. Henry, still suspicious, took the cup from Hattie, but said nothing. She looked back toward the front window, at all the other customers who were looking at her like a madman. Everyone watched with a sort of anticipation as he drank the entire cup greedily. "I need more, please, Hadassah." He handed the cup back to Hattie, and she filled it again and then gave it back. Once he had drunk his fill, he sent Hattie back to the front of the shop. 45 minutes passed. This time, Hattie's voice shook even more when she stepped forward and said, "Excuse me, what is it, Hadassah?" Henry asked, but he didn't point the gun at her. "I'm really very sorry to interrupt you like this, but I couldn't help but notice that you're bleeding. I'm training to be an EMT. I could patch you up, if you'd like." Now, if it had been almost any other person in the cafe who asked this, they would have been turned down. But Hattie had somehow managed to find favor in the eyes of this man, and therefore he nodded, beckoning her forward for the second time. "The first aid kit is behind the counter," Hattie said, pointing. He allowed her to go and get it, and when she had, the two of them sat down at one of the tables and got to work, while Hattie cut his shirt open so she could clean the wound and examine it. Henry kept his gun trained on the front of the store so that no one would try to escape while he was inconvenienced. "You've been kind to me, Hadassah." "Why?" Henry asked. Hattie pushed her glasses up with the back of her wrist. "I don't think that you're a very bad person. I think that sometimes people get mixed up in bad things. Things that grab a hold of them and try to drag them down into the depths of darkness. Sometimes, when something's got a hold of someone, they can't get out on their own. Sometimes, we need to lend a hand to those who are wrestling with evil. And what if I really am a bad person? Henry responded. Well, then, that would make all of us. But there's a difference between a bad person and a bad person who's trying to be better. Hattie threaded some string on a surgical needle. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to help you with that. I want to be the hand that gives you what you need to win this fight with darkness. It was truly a miracle that she had said all that without tripping on her words or messing up with her stitches. She tied the string off and cut it, then lowered Henry's shirt back down. The injury wasn't what she had been expecting. Honestly, she thought he might have been shot, but it was still a deep scrape that needed patched up. And how would you do that? Henry asked, taking her wrist. When he looked at her, Hattie noticed that his eyes were different than they had been. They were searching instead of wandering, passionate instead of crazed. Help me, I mean. Well, it could start by the two of us sitting down and having a very serious conversation about what it means to be good or evil and how we can change at all. And then, depending on what you decide, it would probably end with you getting in one of those cop cars and atoning for what you've done up to this point. Henry nodded, and Hattie sat with him, silently asking for wisdom on what she should say. With a steadying breath, she decided to start by explaining the gospel to him, starting at the beginning, like she had been taught to do. She explained how God made the world, made us perfect, but then how we fell into sin. She explained separation from God and what that meant for us in our fallen state. And then she told Henry, who was listening intently, as though this was the only thing he ever had to think about. Henry, why are we here today? What made you decide to do this? Hattie asked when she had gone through her spiel. I got in with some rough people. We did something bad, he said, head in his hands. Police pulled up, and I didn't want to get caught, so I ran. Figured I could do what they do in the movies and negotiate my escape. Wasn't till I got in here that I remembered. Henry looked up at Hattie, eyes shining with tears. Bad guy never gets out of the situation in the movies. Okay, Hattie nodded. So what's next? Everyone goes home, Henry whispered, taking in a shaky breath. And I go to prison. Hattie stood and turned to the rest of the people in the cafe. And Henry put the gun on the table, away from him. Go home. Hattie told everyone along the window, smiling. Then she sat back down and faced the criminal before her, asked him how he was feeling, listened intentionally only to him while a SWAT team came in and surrounded them both. Henry had long since broken down into tears and was shaking with sobs so hard that he couldn't even hold his hands up in surrender. He didn't protest when they put the cuffs on him and read him his rights, or when he got it in the back of a police car. When it was all over, Hattie put her head down in her arms on the table. She did not anticipate how exhausting it would be to evangelize at gunpoint. Her friends came back in and laid a blanket over her, matching the ones wrapped around them. Shock blankets, they were called. Hattie, that was so stupid and brave, Carmen said, sitting next to her. Are you okay? I'm fine, just doing what had to be done. Hattie responded, looking up from the table to her friends. We should go get ice cream, Harper said, then quickly amended, through the drive-through. Hattie snorted, laughing. I have ice cream in my dorm room. Come on. The four girls left the cafe and drove to the college, each separately praying a little prayer of gratitude on the drive over, and then finished their Bible study in the comfort of Hattie's living room, with bowls of chocolate ice cream next to them. When Henry's trial came 2 weeks later, Hattie attended. She watched him plead guilty and apologize to the people he had hurt. She didn't visit him in prison, but wrote him letters of encouragement every once in a while. When he wrote back that he had become a Christian, she shared it with everyone in her church. Overjoyed, after a year or so, the four girls decided to try the coffee shop again. And so now, every week for the past 10 weeks, Hattie, along with a new friend named Maya, has gone to the little family-owned cafe for a Bible study with a few of her friends from church. She'd walk in and hear the quiet, uplifting music and the gentle bustle of the few people inside, and smell the fresh, ground coffee beans and vanilla. Then Maya and Hattie would see Carmen, who had dyed her blonde hair bright orange since last week, and Harper with her new engagement ring, and Marissa, who was now pregnant. And they'd sit and talk and read and pray, just as they expected to do for the next 10 weeks.